everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we are once again talking about polyamory, and I know I did not think I was going to be doing even more videos about polyamory, but alas, YouTube is dragging me into talking about this for some reason. So I honestly don't know what I'm even going to call this video at this point. We'll see what title I end up coming up with after this is edited. But right now, all I can think of is polyamorous people. Please stop doing this. What are you doing? Because today I want to have a conversation that is sort of inspired by a YouTube short that was recommended to me, and I'm not gonna be sharing the actual short itself, I don't think, because the person who made it, their channel is very small and it has like basically no views on it. I don't really want to like blow up their spot or anything, but I do think it is a really good current representation of a pattern that I have seen over and over again. So we're going to read a portion of the transcript from that video, and then we're going to talk about it. So a couple of days before my birthday, I found out that my partner of 4 years was cheating on me, and he justified his cheating by saying, "I'm actually poly," even though when I entered this relationship, I told you I was 100% monogamous and would never want an open relationship. The kicker was that I actually really supported him in discovering he was poly. Like, I joined a bunch of like spreads, communities, like a whole bunch of groups to discover more about being poly and what that meant. And was like, hey, can I give you these resources that I found? Can I like connect you to someone poly who's not the person you've been cheating on me with? Or can I connect you to a poly therapist? He said no every time. And the actual story is longer than that, but like I said, I don't want to make this super personal about this person's life. It's really just a representative example because sadly, this is a somewhat common story. A story of someone that declares they are polyamorous after dating, oftentimes long-term, a monogamous person, and then deciding, hey, let's all be in a relationship with the person I cheated on you with, and if you have any problem with that, you are denying my lived experience of wanting to explore what it means to be a polyamorous person. This is me coming out, and just like all of that drivel, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I think I need to say this first off very clearly for everyone in the front, in the back, anyone watching this. Cheating is not polyamory, okay? It's not the same thing in any way. But at the same time, I don't blame people who think that polyamory is cheating with extra steps just because of the number of stories I have read of people that have a partner who cheats on them and then says, well, I'm poly, so it's okay. I understand why that happens. And even within polyamorous spaces, we have people who come in from cheating relationships and then are surprised when we don't really want to support them. Frequently, newcomers to various poly groups introduce themselves with a tale of woe. Alas, after entering into a committed monogamous relationship, usually a marriage, the poor person has just discovered that they are, in fact, polyamorous. In most cases, the newcomer has already strayed into infidelity and wishes to have their cake and eat it too now. They ask for advice regarding how they can convince their spouse to accept the relationship with a new lover so that they can all live happily ever after. The newcomer, who I'll call Chris, is usually surprised to find that they are not in fact welcomed with open arms. Most of us are very hostile to people who cheat on their partners and call it polyamory because it has absolutely nothing to do with actual polyamory. Because polyamory has informed consent and relationship agreements and boundary setting and all of that stuff. And It basically endeavors to be the exact opposite of cheating. And I believe the typical entry point into polyamory is not through cheating, though people who are cheaters would love to say that's how it works. I think if you actually go through a lot of polyam literature, you will usually discover that the author either finds polyamory because they just are very naturally inclined that way and they never really do anything else, or they have a problem with serial monogamy and they get into really happy, healthy, long-term relationships with people, and then they develop a very close emotional relationship with a new person. They don't ever go across any boundaries, but they know the feelings for that person cannot just stay platonic. They want it to go to another level, and they're so enraptured by the possibility of this new relationship that out of guilt and fear of loss, they break up with the original partner to pursue the new relationship. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum until eventually, hopefully, somebody somewhere introduces them to the concept of polyamory and the fact that if they plan it well and communicate and have it be very open, they don't have to choose between the new shiny relationship and the old stable happy relationship. They can actually have both, but it takes work to get there, and it doesn't happen through cheating. And I've heard people say it before, polyamorous people in fact will say this, where they will say, well, if everyone knew that polyamory was an option, no one would cheat. Everyone would just do poly and cheaters would not exist, or that most cheaters would really be polyamorous if they had the option. And I personally don't agree with this. I couldn't really find any data about people comparing the mentality of a cheater directly to a polyamorous person and how that's different mentally for people. But I have some thoughts and assumptions about this. So with cheating, a big part of the allure, if you look at the classic, guy at work getting on with the secretary, that kind of cheating, oftentimes it is about the taboo, the fact that it's not open, the fact it's hidden and secretive, and ooh, we shouldn't be doing it, but we're doing it anyway, and that they are pursuing something that is not really actually sustainable long term because it's really only fueled by the taboo and the naughtiness of it for a lot of people. And if that person's spouse at home came along and said, hey, you know what, hun, I'm totally fine if you want to go out with the secretary, just make sure you still pay the bills and use protection. And if that were to happen for a lot of people, they would simply not be able to keep cheating because having it be totally open would make it very quickly lose its appeal. It would lose its luster, and then it's well, it's no longer taboo, it's okay, so I guess I'm not really into this so much anymore. It's not really what I want to be doing. And especially if you then pivot into full-on polyamory, where your partner also has the option themselves to also pursue other relationships besides just you. Yeah, a lot of cheaters are not really into that. They want to be the one who has power and control because they get to be the one who is doing something that their partner cannot control, doesn't know about, doesn't have a say in. And then when it becomes known and egalitarian, suddenly it all falls apart. And I'm not saying that this is the only reason why people cheat. It's really not a monolith. People cheat for all kinds of reasons, like people that end up in long-term emotionally dead relationships but don't seem to know how to end that relationship, and so they cheat to find emotional validation. People that do it because they have kinks they can't do with their nesting partner, whoever they live with, or their long-term committed partner, and so instead of breaking up, they decide to, on the side, pursue kink with somebody else. Or they do it because they don't want to miss out on someone who could be better, or they like the novelty of a new person, or they are just bored and see the opportunity and don't want to miss out on it. Now, I think a lot of these reasons, all of them really, none of them are really good reasons for cheating. It's not really a good reason to cheat on anyone, to be clear, but a lot of those problems could actually be solved with communication, not falling for the sunk cost fallacy and realizing when you are doing bad things that hurt people. And in order to move on from that and be a better person, you have to realize that what you're doing is bad and wrong, and then change your behavior and admit that it was wrong to do in the first place, which not a lot of cheaters really seem willing to do, because they always go, well, it was fine that I did it because, this reason and that and the other. And it's like, not really actually good reasons in my opinion. And also, cheating totally exists within polyamory as well. Polyamory is not a free-for-all where anyone does anything with anyone else and no one has a say in anything that happens. It's all totally a black box of like, you never know what's going on. You have relationship agreements. And if you have an agreement that says, we're going to tell each other before we go on first dates with a new person, if one party doesn't tell the other about a new first date, that's cheating, especially with things like physical intimacy, where if you have a polycule and you're not telling the other members of your polycule that you're seeing a new person physically that you haven't let them know about, and especially if you stop using protection with that person, you don't talk about it, you don't make it known, you keep it hidden, that's cheating. Because bad behavior, cheating, lying, deception, all of that also occurs within polyamory. And I think people like to believe that if they're polyamorous, they're going to be more put together, they're going to have better communication skills, they're not going to ever do anything wrong, that people who are polyamorous are just like better at relationships for some reason. And that's not true. People that are poly can be just as prone to all of those really bad behaviors and communication failures and hiding and emotional immaturity with some other baggage on top as well. It's unique to polyamory. And it just doesn't really serve us to pretend like those things aren't problems, because, yeah, polyamory does have some problems, and to my mind, it might even actually be worse, because you really can't take two steps into polyamorous educational literature or blogs without reading about somebody being like, here, this is what to avoid, this is what you should be doing, communication tools, techniques, healthy boundaries, all of this stuff. And like in monogamy, you might actually make it all the way through a 20-year marriage without even like hearing about boundaries. So with poly, a little bit less of an excuse there for bad behaviors, in my opinion. So yes, people that are polyamorous can in fact cheat. They can cheat on each other with other polyamorous people through deception and other means. And also, somebody that is discovering their poly side through cheating because, oh, it's part of my poly journey and you need to accept me for who I really am. Like, this might be harsh, but that's lying to me. You have to be lying to yourself or lying to your partners or both, because I legitimately don't understand how you could really think that without like a pretty extreme level of cognitive distortion where you are excusing your cheating by saying, well, it's okay because now I'm polyamorous as part of my identity, and so therefore anything I do is forgiven because of that, which is absolutely not the case. And again, I genuinely don't think that people that find polyamory through cheating, I don't really think that happens too often. I can't say that it never happens, but I think it's pretty rare. And from what I have observed, I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who knows anyone. I've never even read about anyone who has tried to enter into polyamory through cheating in a monogamous relationship, and then they've been able to maintain that original relationship that was monogamous into polyamory. The breakup seems almost inevitable because of, not the fact you're polyamorous, but because of the level of betrayal of trust involved and how difficult that is to repair. And if really somehow you end up in a scenario where it's like, oh my God, I'm cheating, and in the moment I have a lightning bolt go through my head and it's like, oh my God, I'm polyamorous, oh no, what do I do? The ethical option there is not to coerce your monogamous partner, especially if you're married, into a polyamorous relationship on the back of your cheating. The ethical option is to come clean about your cheating, break up with your monogamous partner, beg for their forgiveness, and beg them to not blast you all over their social media and to friends and family. And then, frankly, ship yourself off to some really long-term therapy and just probably not even see your affair partner anymore either. And frankly, all of that probably not even really gonna be enough to my mind if you are somebody that is prone to cheating and has done it in the past in a habitual way, especially. Not like, ooh, it was a one-off, I was drunk at the office Christmas party and I just slipped and then suddenly I was in her. You know how it is? Like, if it's anything that's like, oh, it was for years with like multiple people and we were in love and we had like a whole second relationship and I'd go on business trips to see this person, like if it's really involved, yeah, you need some serious help to even be able, I think, to approach living an ethical life and just to really dispel any of the likely excuses that a cheating person will say in order to justify their cheating because, oh, I'm really poly. Again, that's not the typical way that most people, in my experience, get into polyamory. What I have seen from people in long-term relationships that get into polyamory from that, the story is much more like this. They're probably married or super long term. Maybe they got together at a really young age, or they've been together like, since high school or from a young age where they were just, I've only ever known this person. We've been together for a really, really long time. And so that was the path we were on. Oftentimes this goes along with being religious growing up or otherwise being really repressed by family and not really being able to evaluate what you actually wanted from a relationship, from marriage, your gender, your sexuality, all of that was like just stuffed down a barrel and then ignored. And then when you become an adult and you have time to be out of the house and, get through college and all of that, typically, oftentimes sort of the late 20s, early 30s, you'll sit and reflect and go, okay, like my whole life I was told to be this thing and to get married and do this, and we did all of that, and something still feels off. And then you sit and reflect, and typically there will be some kind of revelation about gender and sexuality, and part of that might also include wanting to pursue polyamory. And so this person discovers they're polyamorous, and then they probably sit on it for a while. They stew and think and like secretively research about it, and then months, maybe years later, they finally get up the nerve to say, hey, I've been thinking about our relationship and I still really love you, but have you ever heard of polyamory before? And then maybe from that point, their partner is willing to hear them out and they start to think about it, and then it's an ethical tightrope walk of trying to maintain that marriage while also figuring out, in a society that does not approve of doing any of this, how to find a third for your relationship, how to go to a swingers party, how to just date other people at all. And that can be very, very difficult, and not every relationship, not every marriage is going to survive that initial exploratory phase. A lot of people think originally before doing it, oh, I totally want to be poly, and then they do it and go, oh crap, no, I can't do this. I have like too much trauma, I have too much baggage, I just can't unpack all of that right now, I just can't keep doing this for the time being or ever. And so not a lot of marriages are necessarily going to be able to get through this, but in order to even know whether or not you want to potentially pursue polyamory, you don't actually have to cheat on anyone, it turns out. You can just like think about it, reflect, imagine it, and then talk to your partner about it before actually going fully into it and then potentially ruining multiple relationships at the same time. And yeah, you don't have to actually do cheating in order to decide whether or not you're polyamorous. And after you discover polyamory, you don't have to cheat. You might not necessarily be able to maintain your original relationship, but if you can't do that, if you are polyamorous and your partner is monogamous and you are on opposite sides of that spectrum, it is not fair, it is not kind, it is not good, I think, in any way to compel someone to stay in a relationship style that does not work for them because, oh, well, we've been together for so long and we have this and the other, we have our families intertwined and yada yada. Like, yeah, it's hard to untangle. That is so painful. It can be so raw and distressing and difficult. But if what you really want is polyamory, you're either never going to be happy being monogamous, you're going to build up resentment, or your partner is going to be made miserable because they're forced to go along with something they don't really want to be doing. And I know for me, I would not want to put a partner in a position where they were forced to go along with something just to make me happy. That would feel awful. Like, why would you want that? I don't understand. But there is one tiny little side note to this larger conversation that I want to bring up. That is another thing that polyamorous people do that really bothers me as a fellow polyamorous person. And I didn't believe at first how common this was, but now I've heard this multiple times from many people in my life, on the internet, everywhere. And just explain yourself. Why does this happen? Why are there polyamorous people, supposedly, who knowingly pursue monogamous people and then wait until after or during the first date to tell that person that they're polyamorous? I genuinely do not understand why people do this and think it's a good idea. I think I have some ideas about why people do it when it's deceptive on purpose, but why would you think this is a good idea? And I know people that'll say, like, oh, well, it's like, we don't expect kinky people to say they're kinky before a first date. We don't expect bisexual people to tell someone they're bi before a first date. Why do we do that with polyamory? And it's like, you have to understand. You just have to know those are two different things. Those are completely separate instances. And if you are somebody that is polyamorous, especially if you have other relationships already ongoing, by asking a monogamous person to go on a date with you and then not tell them that you are polyamorous and are dating other people, you are making them participate in polyamory without their informed consent, because the dating thing, that's kind of like the whole big part of polyamory for most people, is the dating aspect. And I just don't understand why people do this. I have some ideas about why, and it's not the same thing as like waiting for the right moment to tell somebody before you get intimate that, like, oh, by the way, like, I actually have some kinks. I enjoy doing XYZ thing. I would be curious if you might want to try those. No pressure. If you don't like those things, totally cool, totally fine. I'm also happy doing just this. It's not like that at all. It's much more like if you don't, I don't know, like if you showed up to a first date, like wearing a full-on head-to-toe leather latex outfit, you were calling your date mistress the entire time, and then you tried to lick her shoes underneath the table during the date, and then went, oh, well, it's fine, right? Like, just so you know, I'm kinky. Are you cool with that? Because, like, I like doing this. Like, it's like, you're, like, already asking me to participate in this thing. We're, like, partway through the participation. Little bit hard to stop there. And I think most people that do this, they know really in their heart of hearts that what they are doing is they are taking advantage of what is called the foot in the door technique. And that is when you try to get somebody to open up a little bit about something or be okay with a little bit of exposure. And then once you're in there, you force it open even wider and go, okay, well, you said yes to a date, so now we're going to do this too. And I may be not explaining that super well, but it's so insidious because you know that even if you don't know what technique you're doing, you know that what you're doing is making it more difficult for the other person to say no. If you're already there in the moment on a date, it is way harder to get up and leave when you find out somebody is polyamorous versus choosing to not continue a text message conversation or not matching at all on a dating app. Like, especially if you don't tell someone after potentially days, weeks, months of dating, maybe virtually, or you've been talking every single day for weeks and weeks planning your date, and then after you've already invested all of that time, then revealing, oh, actually, I'm polyamorous, and this is what I do, and you're fine with that, right? That's okay, right? It's like, okay, well, that person who maybe already really likes you now and has a sense of who you are, it's going to be way harder for them to say no to something that they don't like or don't want to have in their life because they're already invested in you, as opposed to giving them a free and clear choice about whether or not they even want to try this in the first place. So yeah, I think that's definitely crappy behavior. And I do not want to hear the excuse that, oh, but it's so hard to find polyamorous people to date. I live in, Bismarck. I live somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I don't have anyone around me. It's like, okay, well, like if you're in a literal like 2-cow town, like maybe you just have to do online dating. But if you're in any kind of big city or around a big city or just in a very like populous area, why aren't you open about being polyamorous? Like, come on now. Like, I know it's hard to listen to me because I am a skinny white woman, and according to all of the data, I should have like the easiest time ever on all of the dating apps. So what do I know about the hardships of being a cishet man on a dating app or whatever? Like, I get it. I know that it's more difficult for most people besides me, but I have some anecdotal evidence for people I know in my polyam sphere in my life, people I know, friends of friends, people I know online, and I know so many people that are anything along a whole spectrum of height, age, size, income level, experience with poly, level of kink participation, all of that stuff, sexual orientation, gender identity, all of that. And I don't know anyone who has ever lied about being polyamorous to date a monogamous person or to pursue monogamous people on dating apps. And frankly, if I knew someone who did this, I would not interact with them anymore. That is like so unethical to me, and like the justification for it is so limp and unconvincing. I just, like, if you have trouble meeting anyone who is poly in a 200-mile radius on every single dating app, in person at events, anything you could be doing to find other polyamorous people, if you still can't find anyone who wants to date you, maybe that's a sign you need to do some self-reflection there. Maybe you need to figure out what's going on internally instead of lying to people and tricking them. Like, the answer to dating being hard is not tricking people. I feel like it should be obvious. Like, don't trick people because dating is hard. Like, it should be simple, but it's really not, and it makes me frustrated. But we're here talking about it because I don't want people to have excuses on the internet anymore for their crappy behavior. And really, if you're on places like OkCupid or Field, they make it so easy to say that you are non-monogamous or open to that you really don't have an excuse for not putting it in there. Okay, maybe you should think about that. Maybe you should opt for that option. Again, online dating, long distance, other hobby groups. There are ways to meet people that want to have your style of relationship that does not come from lying to people, okay? So with that being said, that's my rant about polyamory again. And yeah, cheating is not polyamory. People who lie about being poly or cheat and then go, but it's okay because I'm poly, they're garbage people. Garbage. Don't want to interact with them. Just please get help and do not expect your partner to like ignore their own hurt feelings and potential trauma because of what you did to them. Like, just don't do that. And yeah, that's really it. I would love to know all y'all's thoughts in a comment down below, especially other polyamorous people. What do you think about this whole narrative about like polyamory and cheating, and like, can people who cheat become good polyamorous people eventually? What does that look like? How long does that take? I would love to know all your thoughts again in a comment down below. If you did enjoy this, if you're not already, please do subscribe, because I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink, BDSM, dating, asexuality, relationship related topics. And finally, if you want to support what I do, the best way you can do that is with Patreon. A link to that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye bye.